Hi there, friends. Before we dive in, we want to let you know something important. While this podcast does feature a marriage and family therapist, we are not your therapist. This is a space for informational and educational purposes only. We're here to have a deep conversation over coffee. If you find yourself feeling stuck or overwhelmed, we encourage you to reach out to a trusted therapist, counselor, coach in your area who can give you personalized support you deserve. Because let's be real, life is way too hard to go at it alone, and your emotions are way too valuable to ignore. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get to the good stuff. Today's podcast is for the moms, the women, the mothers in our community. We have JoAnn Crohn, the founder of No Guilt Mom. She is an author, entrepreneur, mom of two, and the creator of Balance, which is the support system for the ambitious women who want to stop feeling guilt and start feeling grounded at home and at work. I love following JoAnn and learning from her because she is always willing to be raw, vulnerable, and real. Today, we're talking about taking off masks and how we show up in the world, loneliness in motherhood, and how to gain community and support around us. So I'm so glad you are here. Let's dive in. Welcome. I am so glad that you are here joining us for another episode of the Connection Codes podcast. And today I am thrilled to have JoAnn with us, podcast host, the leader of No Guilt Mom. I had the pleasure of meeting JoAnn at a mom conference 2 years ago, but I've followed her work and listened to her podcast for a while. And I love getting to share people with you, with our community. And so welcome, JoAnn. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me here. And we loved having you on our podcast. It was such a good conversation. And I'm so excited to get into it. And like the conversations we had over there, like your core emotion wheel is genius. It's genius. I immediately brought it up to my family.
Yay. Okay. I love that. It really is. And I have a lot of joy that I can talk about how genius it is too, because I didn't create it. You know, I get to brag on someone else, Dr. Glenn and Phyllis creating it. And I'm like, it is a genius. Like it changed my life. And I feel the same way. So tons of joy that you've already introduced it to your family. So talking of introductions, I would love for you to share with our audience, like who is JoAnn and a little bit about you and how you found yourself in this position of talking about guilt with your community.
I guess we could start by saying I didn't want to be a mom. I had no desire. It was one of those things where I married my husband when I was 24 and we had been together for 5 years at that point, but he was all excited to have kids. And I'm like, hold on there, because the way I saw my parents when I was growing up, like they would go to work all day, then they would come home at night just exhausted. Everyone would collapse in front of the TV, and that was it. I didn't see them have a social life. I didn't see them going out with friends, none of that. And so that was my image of parenting. And I didn't want to give up my friends. I didn't want to give up my social life. I didn't want any of that. So what finally convinced me was we went to go visit his cousins in Colorado, and they were starting a business. And they had a 2-year-old son. And the 2-year-old son was just like opening cabinets, banging pots and pans. Everything was fine. And they kept talking their business talk and making their own plans. Like their son, though they loved him immensely, I could tell, it wasn't their sole reason for being. And that was a very different version of parenthood that I was like, that could work for me. I could do that. So when I did become a mom, though, I had huge postpartum depression. I felt like this sense of myself had changed, like my body had been taken over. I didn't feel like me. I didn't have the same freedom I was used to before. I felt very contained with so many expectations on like raising this little one, right? Like I wanted nothing horrible to happen to my daughter. I wanted her to be taken care of. I wanted her to be loved. I wanted her to like have joy, but I didn't know how to make that happen without sacrificing all of myself to do it. Because that was the model. And so after going to therapy, and I remember the pivotal appointment that did it for me is I hated breastfeeding so much. Like it caused me intense pain, as well as I don't think I was a big producer. And so my daughter would just be basically attached to me from morning to night. And I was just struggling with it. And she's like, JoAnn, your only responsibility is feeding your child. Like, however you feed her, like you could just get her formula and that'd be fine. And you're doing a good job as a mom by doing that. And I was like, you know what? Yes. And I went out right after that appointment. I bought the head of cabbage. I stuck it in my sports bra, got the bottle of formula, fed my daughter her first bottle. And this whole world opened up for me where I wasn't stuck under everyone else's expectation. I was doing something that worked for me. And I wanted to share that with other moms who I knew must be feeling the same way. And so a few years later, I started what's now No Guilt Mom to share like all the things that I was learning, all the things that I researched, all of the things to make moms' lives easier, combining my experience as a teacher and as a mom. And that's where we are today with a thriving community of over like thousands and thousands. I never know how to equate that. Thousands of people in our No Guilt Mom community, and a big membership, our Balance membership, which helps moms stop doing everything by themselves and start getting other people to step up. And a lot of that is countering the guilt and countering those expectations that we have that kind of keep us stuck in our own little boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're even talking about it from that perspective of expectations, because that's something about guilt that was actually kind of surprising to me. The message of guilt is that I need to change my action or expectation. And for so long, I just thought about it as the action and not the expectation. But even breastfeeding, like we're breastfeeding, one, it is good for our kids, yes, but there does come a point where it's an expectation. It's this like societal expectation that other people have and how we parent. And even becoming a mom, for me, I became a mom because that was the expectation for me to do that. Yes.
Yeah, it's expectations. And it's also a lot of fear baked into those expectations. Like if you don't do things a certain way, something horrible is going to happen and it's all going to be your fault because you didn't do it this way. So with that in mind, I do want to share this about breastfeeding. My daughter, I breastfed her for a month. And then she went on formula. She has been pretty healthy. She's 16 now. She's been pretty healthy. She's been all good. My son, I actually stuck with it, and I breastfed him for 2 years. So I was able to make it work in a very sustainable way. I had a lot more support systems built in at that time. He has had like so many gastro issues, and we've actually had a night at the children's hospital, but like, I mean, he's fine. I just thought at the time, oh my gosh, by breastfeeding my daughter, she's going to be sick the rest of her life. But there is no correlation. No. So I just want to share that.
Yes, yes. Well, because it also opens up the dialogue for people if you are living in an expectation for yourself. Like truly, your mental health was suffering, your body is suffering. And we as women and as moms often do put ourselves on the back burner. And I love you talk a lot about, being a happy mom. And there's been this like study and research done that the quality of our kids' lives depend on like the happiness of the mom, which no pressure. That feels like a lot of pressure,
It is a lot of pressure. And it's not just that. I wouldn't even say like that moms have to be incredibly, incredibly happy. Like I think that's a pressure all to itself, saying like, oh, you have to be happy all the time, else your kids are going to be miserable. But what it does say is that don't be unhappy. And I'm not saying like, of course there are reasons to be unhappy and like you have moods, ups and downs. I have moods, ups and downs, but it's never worth it to sacrifice yourself and your happiness because you think you're doing it for your family. It always shows through. There has to be something that makes you happy and makes you joyful. Not just like I should be joyful, but like actually makes you joyful. Because that's important to show kids. I always think like, I don't want my kids to think like parenting is awful. I don't want them to think like you have to give up everything to be a parent, because I think some of the best parents in the world are those who are doing things for themselves, because then they show their kids that this is like, this could happen for you too. So the more parents like that, the better.
Also, when we are drowning in our own pain, it's hard to experience the joy. When we're living in pain, actually being able to recognize and process the joy is really difficult. And so saying yes and processing that guilt and saying, this is an expectation someone else has put on me. I am not taking this on for myself anymore. You can stop the cycle of pain in your life so you can experience the joy. And so that's why knowing, oh, I'm experiencing guilt or I'm experiencing pain is so important, because it helps us to move out of those things.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of, we just had a conversation with, her name's Courtney Carver. She just wrote a book called Gentle. Have you heard of this book?
No, I haven't.
We were talking about how do you find like what you find joyful in life? How do you find like stuff that you like to do that makes you happy? And she said that like so many of us are so busy doing all the things that we don't have the space in our life to actually listen to those signals about what makes us happy and what makes us joyful. And so to anybody listening right now, if you're like, I have no idea what makes me happy, I mean, it could be that there is so much stuff going on that you don't have the room to hear the messages of that.
Yeah. And that leads me to a really great question as well, in asking like, so how can moms reconnect to themselves? You know, if we are super busy, if we do have a lot going on, how can we actually reconnect to ourselves and our families without feeling like it's just one more thing on our to-do list to do?
That is how it's like positioned, I feel like, in the media. Like you should like put that connection time on your calendar so that like you take, oh my gosh, it feels so stressful to do it that way. And I feel like it sucks all the joy out of it as well. The way that I think that everyone can start connecting to themselves is to first figure out what you're even thinking. And one of the tools I use to figure that out is journaling. I used to hate journaling. I thought that I needed to be one of those people who sat down and like had the same journal every day and wrote about my entire day, and somehow like some kind of realization or light bulb would go off and I would find like some big thing in the day, but it just became such a monotonous process and I'd give it up within like a day or two. I would just put off journaling. What does work for journaling is processing really intense emotions and processing reactions, such as when I get angry. I love that that is a moment I go back and journal about later, and trying to figure out, okay, I had a huge reaction here. I went from happy to very angry, and I have no idea what set me off. And I'll go through like this little process. And you've probably heard the process. It's called like circle thinking, was the way it was taught to me, where you're like, okay, what was I doing before? And then what happened right before my mood changed? And what was the thought I had regarding that incident? Because it's usually always the thought, always the thing you say to yourself that causes that next emotion. And so when I started doing this process regularly in a journal, I started realizing what I was saying to myself and how I was interpreting situations. And that really helped me figure out how to connect back to myself, because then I realized, okay, here's what I could say differently to myself in that situation. Here are situations that really piss me off. And that tells me something about how I should like structure things or be more intentional about things or let things go. It goes back to what you were saying, Tara, about the expectations. What I was expecting of myself was clearly like clouding my whole reality.
Yeah. I love that because that's something that the connection codes has really helped me do a lot. It's acknowledging the emotion and then thinking what thought is tied to that emotion. And I have changed so many of my thought patterns because I was able to finally access, ooh, I got really angry in that moment. Ooh, what was happening for me? Okay, I felt guilt about this. Oh, that's tied up in a thought or an expectation. I need to begin working to shift that. And that process truly has changed my life. I mean, and that feels big. It is big. It really has changed how I show up with my kids in almost every circumstance at this point. But it started with the emotion and then changing the thought. And I do love the idea of journaling. I'm not a journaler yet. It's something that I aspire. Ironically, I have not one, but 3 open notebooks on my desk right now. I'm like writing all day, which is obscene. I was like,
I have something for that. So like I had all the notebooks too, and then I could not find like which notebook I had my ideas in. And I have ADHD as well. And so like I can't do things on a digital device because I would get on the digital device, something would distract me. And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, what was I even doing on here in the first place? And so this is something we actually recommend to our balance members as well. It's the Remarkable. Have you heard of the Remarkable?
ooh, I've seen this. Tell me more.
It's just like, think of it as just a notebook. It's just a notebook in digital form, but like it's all my notebooks. So my journal is on here. We give our balance members the balance journal. So for everybody who's like a little like uncertain about journaling, it's like this one page we have people do every day. And it's to set your thought process up in a way that really gives you realistic expectations. So the first box is, what does my mind need to hear? What do I need to tell myself to get myself in a good frame of mind? And what I teach people to tell yourselves is to do like counter to what your inner voice is telling your inner critic. We call that inner critic Bob. His name's Bob. He's a little monster.
Yeah. No, if any Bobs that are listening,
Bob's no, like, yeah. Please, if Bob is your cousin's name or your brother's name, like some people have told us they have to use a different name for this. But Bob just tries to keep you safe, but he tries to keep you safe by really keeping you down. So like things like I've written in my journal of what my mind needs to hear. Like I am capable. I can figure things out. I have figured things out in the past. People like me and want to be around me. That's a current thing that like, not current, but it's a frequent statement Bob tells me that like I'm unlovable or I'm unlikable. So I'll write that into what my mind needs to hear. And then we have people write down what they want to accomplish that day. Just like one thing that's good to accomplish that day. And then the journal page is only half a page because I know journaling when it starts, it is so intimidating to fill
the
up
blank
the paper.
page. Yes.
Yeah, the blank page. So like it's just a way that like I found and I've taught our members how to connect to themselves to figure out really what you're thinking and what your thoughts are.
I love that you're reinforcing the I am statements as well. We talk a lot about identity with the connection codes, and identity it's in 2 forms, what we believe about ourselves, but also in relationship to others, like how we feel they view us. Like, are we significant to our partners? Do we matter to other people? All of those things are part of our identity, but we get to tell ourselves who we are. And I have found in how I speak to myself and what I believe about myself has changed how I show up in the world. So I love that that is already a prompt that you have in your journal. And so what is something that most moms secretly believe about themselves, about motherhoods that's keeping them disconnected?
A lot of moms think that a good mom is selfless, that she only thinks about other people and that that's supposed to make her happy. And if she's not happy being selfless, something's wrong with her. I mean, that's a thought that I have had so many times. I'm like, I should be so grateful to have this family. I should be so grateful to have what I have. Why aren't I grateful? Damn it, be more grateful. Like it just gets into like this like never ending cycle that I don't think men ever have been taught to internalize in themselves. And a lot of women have. And another thing that moms secretly believe is like, I'm the only one struggling. Everyone else has it together.
Yes, that is so real.
Yeah. Well, when people first join us in balance, they're always like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I wasn't the only one. Like, this is a universal thing. We are all struggling in motherhood. And I think there was just a news article I saw today about how such a large percentage of American women are experiencing a lot of mental health problems currently. So those are like two things.
I saw that article came out. I think I saw it yesterday, but since COVID, just the increase of mental health issues for moms specifically and women. Yeah, I think that that is such a good point, and that's kind of been, I don't know, a rant that I've had. Maybe that's Wes will say that that was a rant that I'm currently passionate about. Is that we do when we believe that we're the only ones experiencing something, that creates loneliness in our life, which then creates more shame, more guilt, more everything. And that's what I've loved about the core emotion wheel, because when I hear other women do it, logistically, I may not have walked in their shoes. Like I may not have logistically, experienced exactly the situation they experienced. Maybe their kid was expelled from school. I haven't experienced that. But when they process that fear or that hurt, I connect with that. Like I get that. I've been in a situation where I've had the calls from the principal. I've had, my kids rejected from places. And when we can connect over the emotion, we're really not alone at all. Like we are all in this together. And I love creating spaces for women to be able to share their life experiences with each other, because it really does help to reduce that shame and reduce that fear when it's like, oh, this is something Becky experienced 2 weeks ago. I can call Becky and she can help process this with me or hold space for me. It helps us to not isolate.
Yeah. And like, it's so contrary to how women have been in the past, because we've been taught to compete with each other. We've been taught to be like, oh my gosh, like as like you have to do better than them, else like you're going to fail, because there was only a certain number of spots available for women at the table. And this whole like fear and like emotion and all this mental health struggles, like this is nothing new in womanhood. Like even after COVID, I mean, COVID was a huge significant event for us. And yet women have needed like mental release for a long time. Look at like the mother's little helper pill of the 70s and 60s, which was Valium. It was Valium moms were taking. And then it became mom wine culture, where it was acceptable to like after a full day, you just take out your wine and you just need to relax. And now I feel like there's this push towards sobriety for moms, which adds another layer on the guilt tower, because now like this coping mechanism, which is not the best coping mechanism, there needs to be a much better societal change for this. But this coping mechanism of wine is now seen as bad and wrong. And moms are supposed to give that up. So now, like, how do we deal with things? It's like pushing us into kind of a new arena where we really need to lean on each other, and we need the support of each other, and we need to make some big changes in our lives and in society for us to exist happily.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why taking advantage of tools like the balance membership, like the core emotion wheel, finding other tools to help us so we can find the support that we need, because women need other women, men need men, like we all need each other. And I think that that's actually one of the most fearful things about the direction our society is going, is we are becoming more and more isolated, especially with AI, where we're processing things with AI instead of going to another human. Like it's becoming our best friend. And people are talking about the future of dating, their AI, like all of these
That's
things.
a little weird for me.
It's terrifying. It is wild.
I love AI from like a stuck in my own head creative perspective. Like it does come up with some solutions where you're like, oh, I never thought of that. I could tweak that a little bit. And that gives me another great idea. Like AI is great from some standings, but the whole like replacing actual human emotions, like I cannot get behind it because there's also the thing of like mirror neurons where you need to see somebody's like facial reactions and experiences to feel like you completely connect and like your whole nervous system is calm that way. That is something that computers cannot stimulate, cannot like get right with us.
But AI will never reject you. And so people feel safe going there. And so that is why it is so important that we can build these skills and build these tools early. I heard an interview this week of somebody talking about how using this new technology is keeping us from gaining skills that we need as humans. Like we need to learn to struggle. We need struggle in our life. That is a skill that we can overcome. And since you are working with women and working with moms that already often feel isolated, they already feel overwhelmed, what is it that makes connection feel so hard for women in this season of their life?
I think it's mostly because we don't know how to connect. Like none of us were taught. I mean, some of us were, but like there's specific social skills that are necessary for connecting in person. A lot of us don't have those social skills. A lot of us are shy. A lot of us have neurodiversity, which makes it very, very hard to connect with other humans if we don't know the specific skills that we need to emulate to do that. I'm case in point. I'm like, I was the shyest person growing up. In elementary school, I felt I was pretty good with people, but then middle school hit and I got bullied. I got isolated. I got rejected a lot. I felt like I almost had to come in and hack the system when I was an adult to actually figure out how to relate to people and how to get along with people and how to make friends. And now when people tell me, they're like, and when I tell people, I'm like, I'm an introvert. I'm actually very shy. I'm very awkward. They're like, what? No. And I'm like, you guys don't get it. I'm masking right now. like it feels good to mask, but it also like, it takes an emotional and energetic toll where I can do it for a while and then I will definitely shut down. Like that mom conference we went to, usually at those conferences, I'm like on my A game the first day. And then the second day, I am napping in that hotel for like hours at a time because I am done. I can't do it for very long. So like making it so hard to connect, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of not knowing how to show up in the world. It's a lot of like being emotionally overwhelmed with others. It's a lot of like thinking about how you're coming across and also trying to keep everybody else's like conversations like in line and also trying to tune out all the noise that you hear outside so you can focus on the conversation. Like there's so many things at play that make it so hard to connect.
How do you help other moms, or do you have any system to teach them of how to build that connection? I talk to so many women and we desire friendships. I luckily have a good friend and she's like, we're going to meet every Thursday morning. We actually like two of them just left my house 10 minutes before we jumped on this call. And we spend Thursday morning together, me and like 6 women. And how do you help other women, or what tools can they find where they can build community with each other? And why is it important for them to do that?
That is a really good question because building community in person is such a hard thing. And I love that you have like a weekly thing. That makes me want to have a weekly thing, Tera. What I recommend, at least, I have a monthly happy hour with my friends. That's actually today. I'm going today in the afternoon where I get to connect with them in person and see them. But as far as tools to teach other women, I encourage them, first of all, online connections. Even though online, there is that certain personal aspect missing, but it's a great place to start. It's a great place to know that, hey, I am not alone with this. Other people are experiencing this as well. And so it's not just me. And to do that and to make connections in our balance community, we have a live thing every day where I'm on live. I call it Joe with Joe, and they're all chatting with each other in the comments. And we get on together on Zoom calls where we call it body doubling. And we're working on our specific things, but we're sharing at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session and supporting each other that way and having that connection. Another thing in sort of like communication is like one of my main communication blocks, and I know that this was a big communication block for a lot of the women I coach, is that we make assumptions over what the other person's thinking. We think that certain things, like we read them a certain way to always be like, oh my gosh, they don't like us. Oh my gosh, what I said was stupid. Oh my gosh, like I can't believe, like, you know, all these assumptions. And so one of the frameworks I teach that women use with other women, other friends, their partners, their kids is our happy framework. And our happy framework starts with first having a priority. So, like one thing you're trying to accomplish, maybe it is just getting to know another person. With kids, it could be like one behavior with the kids. Like we were talking before we started about how our kids both have a really hard time eating when traveling, the uncomfortable food. The next part is A, which is appreciate the other person's point of view. This is something that once people master the A, all other communication goes so much easier. And appreciating the other person's point of view is just learning how to ask questions to figure out what are they thinking? What are they feeling? How did they interpret certain things? And once you are able to get a really good understanding of who that other person is, what's important to them, where they come from, that's like 95% of the battle right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just getting curious about each other.
Getting curious about each other. Yeah. And then the second part, the third part, P, process your emotions, is all about learning how to share what you're feeling in a structured way, especially when there's conflict. Because sometimes we'll come to conflicts in our relationships and we don't know how to go past them because we haven't had to before and no one taught us how to do that. So process your emotions. The next P is problem solve, which really helps build those long-term relationships because, you know, long-term relationships and friendships can get messy. And if you don't have a way to problem solve, you're going to find that you're stuck. Like we just went to a retreat and there was a conversation had at night that was upsetting for a few of our clients. And I was processing with them the next day. I wasn't there. Alcohol was involved. They all realized alcohol was involved. But they were able to problem solve through it. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to go talk to her today and I'm going to apologize for my part in it and see how it goes from there. Because she could lean back on that happy framework and the happy process. And then the why is yield the work. And what that means is that after you've done your part, you let it go. You could apply yield the work when you're trying to get your family on board with taking more control, taking more responsibility. It's where you step back, let them do it. But you could also do yield the work in terms of friendships where, hey, I've said my piece. They've said their piece. We understand it. We're trying this new thing. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're even teaching it in regards to friendship as well. Because so often if we experience conflict in friendship, it's just easy. You just bounce out because we're not tied to that person. It's not like it's our sister or our husband, but so many women experience pain in a friendship and then it just dissolves. They don't have the framework to actually communicate to move past that. So I love that you even had a real life moment, you know, with your community. We're like, let's put this thing into action. Let's practice this because then when you go home, you can already know how to do it and it can be more of a habit and a pattern to apply to your life. So I love that you're talking even more about the conflict resolution part in regards to community. Well, I connect so much to everything that you share. I absolutely love following you and hearing you talk about motherhood in such a raw, vulnerable, real way. I think that you mentioned masking earlier. So many of us mask, especially when it comes to motherhood, because there's guilt to talk about the hard parts of it. Exactly what you'd mentioned of we're supposed to be grateful. We have kids and they're here and we made it, but it is hard. So we mask, we don't share. It keeps us isolated oftentimes. And so you have opened up your life and your community to create safe space for women to problem solve and to build that connection together. And so much joy in getting to like introduce you to our people, to our community.
Oh, well,
Before
thank
we
you, Tera.
leave,
You make me blush. Thank you.
oh, good. We always wrap the episode up by doing the core emotion wheel with each other. And that is the 4-minute tool that Dr. Glenn and Phyllis created that actually helps us to learn how to access those emotions that are firing so we can process the guilt and change the thought pattern around the moments that we need to do that. And so I don't mind going first if you would like me to lead as the example. Okay, I have to like get myself in the frame of thought. I feel guilt. My kids have been on screens way too much today. They're on one right now as we're doing this podcast, and they were this morning during my girls' time. So I'm feeling some guilt about that. I'm having some fear. We are driving to see my husband's family tomorrow, and it's a 6-hour drive. And so just being in the car for 6 hours with my children is a lot. And so I'm having some fear in that. Some lonely. My husband was unexpectedly invited to go visit his friend in Miami today and have a guy's day. And so I'm going to be prepping for our trip by myself. So just a little loneliness there. Joy that he is with his best friend, though. Lonely there. Sad. Sad. What's happening with my sad? Something is missing or damaged. The sunshine has been missing. I am sad because I want to be by the pool, and it has not been the weather for the pool yet, and it is the end of May. I'm feeling hurt. Yesterday morning, my husband and I were having a conversation. Oh, no, it was last night when he was like, hey, he invited me to come to Miami tomorrow. And he was like, but you're doing this thing. And it was like, ooh, no, it feels like you're throwing my thing in my face. Like I don't want to do this tit for tat thing. And so I felt hurt in that moment. I had a little anger in that moment as well, because that's just not how we typically operate. And joy. Oh, I'm flooded with joy. I have joy that we made it out of that moment within like 60 seconds and we were all good. I processed my hurt and he held space for that and saw my perspective. I have joy in getting to be here with you, JoAnn, today and share about your framework and your community with our people. So lots of joy. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. Okay. I was looking through this and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a little vulnerable. I was actually like feeling some tears come to my eyes when I was thinking about some of my my responses as you shared yours. And then, this is gonna sound funny though, but like, so my first one is guilt. But the guilt that I was thinking of other things when you were sharing your emotions in the emotion wheel, and I was thinking of my responses because like that is something I try not to do, and yet my brain goes there. So I was feeling guilt for that. Sad because I feel like things are going as fast as I want them to. I feel like I'm struggling on a lot of things right now, like business wise, like things just not working. And so there's a lot of sad there. There's a lot of lonely there as well, thinking that I have to be the one to figure out everything. I know that's not true. I have a team, but still like I have that pressure on myself and fear too, fear that I can't figure things out, fear that like things won't work out. And it keeps me very stressed and anxious. Hurt. I saw two of my friends went out to see a show last night and I had no idea they were going. And I found out through social media and Facebook this morning when I woke up. So I was hurt. joy, just being able to talk to people really brings me joy. So being here with you, Tera, brings me joy. Knowing that we have time after this scheduled to talk brings me joy, to take me out of my loneliness and hopefully you out of your loneliness as well, in the business perspective. Anger, because like things just feel like hard and I have no control over it. And I'm very angry about that. And then shame. Oh, shame just thinking like I'm a broken person, that I can't like make things happen sooner. They're all about one event. I have a lot of emotions, Tera, all about one thing.
No, I get that. That is called an issue specific wheel. We do those a lot. Yes, I actually was with a friend this morning and talking about her fertility journey. And I was like, an issue specific wheel all around that one topic. Like, because we experience so much at one time about something, and it can all come very quickly. And I'm pretty sure that you did my will that I said on Monday with my team. And so that is what I love about this tool, is because one, I feel more connected to you, but two, it's like exactly what we mentioned earlier. Oh, it's not just me. I'm not the only one feeling shame that I can't pull this thing off, or fear that I'm not going to get it where it needs to go faster in business, and loneliness and growth. Like all of those things are exactly what I experience as well. And we're not alone. We are not alone in this journey that we're on. And so thank you, JoAnn. Can you tell our community where they can find you?
Yes. So you can come to our site, noguiltmom.com, and I have a little fun quiz for you to take. Like, we're all about being silly and funny. So please, like, when you take this quiz, just know that it's meant to make you laugh, but also meant to make you feel a little something too. It's called How is Mom Guilt Sabotaging Your Success? Easy 5 questions. You can find it noguiltmom.com / or / I don't know what that / is called. Whatever one you usually see at the end of a web address is noguiltmom.com / quiz, QUIZ.
Yes. And we will put that in the show notes as well. But also, you have a podcast. What day of the week does your podcast come out every week?
We have Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we get 2 episodes a week. The No Guilt Mom podcast. Just search No Guilt Mom and you will find it.
Okay, yes. And I will say the podcast is very relatable moments. Even talking about, there was one recently where I feel like you were the one talking about, because your co-host Bree is with you each week as well, but trying to decide what to wear, and just like laying on the bed and just feeling so frustrated and not knowing what to wear, not even know why you would feel that way. And I was like, yeah, I've been there. I get that moment. And so definitely recommend their podcast as well. And for our listeners, our community, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up every week. Send this to your mom friend. Send this to the woman that you want to be in community with and say, I would like to go deeper with you and actually connect with each other. We need to stop living in loneliness as women and as moms. And so this is a great episode to share with her, to bring her in to community with you, and do the quiz together and compare your scores with each other. And for our male listeners that stayed through all the way, maybe to learn something about your wife and what women are experiencing, thank you also for showing up and process what's happening for you. Download the Core Emotion Wheel if you haven't yet, and we will see you next week. Thanks for being here.